Now, there will be enough vaccine to wipe this thing out, I think, by spring, late winter. And I'm praying for that. And literally, I'm praying. So there's a poll from Gallup. And the poll asked, if the FDA approves a vaccine, would you agree to be vaccinated? All right, this is 3,000 adults, Gallup. Yes, 58%. No, 42%. That's pretty big, okay? Now that compares in September, yes was 50, so this is up 8 points, no 50. So people are going. Now I'm going to get vaccinated, all right? And the urchins will too. Holly, I don't think has to. But if Holly does, she's going to get it. Holly the Terror Dog and get vaccinated. That's me. But I would never say to you, you should get vaccinated. I would never do that. That's a personal decision. It's a medical decision. I think you confer with your doctor. The doctor, I hope, your doctor, my doctor, reads all the stuff. Now, right now, there are more than 1 million American kids who have contracted COVID. Well, this is, obviously we all know that. In San Francisco, the mayor says, don't celebrate Thanksgiving. Want the quote? Here it is. But really ask yourself, is it worth it? The infections that come at Thanksgiving will lead to people in the hospital at Christmas. That's the math. That's the timeline of this virus. Nobody wants that, so please stay home on Thanksgiving. All right, that's San Francisco Mayor London Breed. Well, it's easier to stay home in San Francisco because you can't go outside because the army of homeless people not wearing masks will jump on you. So people have to stay home in San Francisco or they'll get COVID from these people. All right, it's like a zombie army. Now, in New York State, there's the city and then there's upstate New York. Upstate New York is relatively conservative except for Buffalo and Rochester. So Fulton County, which is 50,000 people upstate, small rural county, the sheriff there is Richard Giardino. He says he's not going to enforce Governor Cuomo's order limiting the size of Thanksgiving parties or dinners to 10. The sheriff is saying, I'm not enforcing it. Not going to do it. All right? I know you're going to see more of that all over the place. So what about the vaccine legally? Legally. We assume it's going to work. Pfizer and Moderna, those are the biggest. You don't get bigger. We assume the FDA will see the data. They'll approve it. By the end of this year, it'll be out, and then it'll go wide in the first part of 2021. But what are the legal ramifications? Can anybody force you to take it? Let's bring in a very smart guy who is in San Francisco. I'm glad you're not outside, Counselor. All right, Joseph Tully is an attorney who is studying the constitutionality of the vaccine. So first of all, can any government, federal, state, local, force an American citizen to take the COVID vaccine?
The short answer is yes. This was a case decided in 1905 by the United States Supreme Court, Jacobson v. Massachusetts. And in that case, the High Court decided that a state may require vaccination if the Board of Health deems it necessary for public health or safety. That's sort of what the legal analysis will boil down to. That is what the pro-state power to vaccinate will argue. There are some counters that I believe can be made to this, however.
All right, 1905. Now, this is a state and local decision, not a federal decision, correct?
No, this is a decision that went to the United States Supreme Court, but it deals with whether or not a state, through its police power, can enforce mandatory vaccines.
Because there's a difference
Correct.
between a state and then the feds saying, hey, everybody's got to get vaccinated or the FBI is going to come and take you away. So let's stay with the state. So you're saying, based on a 1905 Supreme Court decision, that any state can order all people living there to take the vaccine, correct?
Correct, if the Board of Health deems it necessary for public health or safety.
And it will.
And I think, sure, certainly it will.
It will. Now, the federal government doesn't have that same power?
No, this would be a police power reserved to the state. I think the federal government could have some arguments if it wanted to take that route. For instance, they would have to prove some kind of jurisdiction. So they would have to say, we have jurisdiction over this virus because the virus doesn't recognize state lines. This is a national problem. It needs a national solution. And anytime a person who has a virus crosses the state lines, that gives the federal government power. So there is enough gray area in the law where it could become
A
mandatory
federal
by the
law.
federal
And that's a
government.
pretty
But
powerful
yeah,
argument. In a
correct.
pandemic, obviously people aren't going to be forced to stay in a state. They can go in a car where they want. If what I think is going to happen is that the states are going to recommend you take the vaccine, and then when you do, you're going to get a card of some kind or an ID of some kind. And that will permit you to do certain things, like go to a concert, go into a restaurant, and the people who don't have it will be limited in what they can do. Would that be legal?